Okay, let's unpack this. Because imagine you're sitting in a boardroom, and you're designing a digital platform.
Mm-hmm.
You code the infrastructure perfectly, you launch it to the public, and within exactly 1 year, your company's revenue explodes by 200%.
Yeah,
It sounds like absolute fiction, right? I mean, it sounds made up.
it really does, yeah.
But according to the comprehensive 2025 strategy guide that we're doing a deep dive into today,
Mm-hmm.
that is the verifiable reality of the on-demand services sector.
Right.
And our mission for this deep dive is to basically look under the hood of this entire industry, because it is expected to surpass $335 billion globally in 2025.
Which is just a massive, massive number.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And we want to understand how this infrastructure is fundamentally rewiring modern existence. Like,
Yeah.
it's moving way beyond the old cliche of just, getting a pizza delivered or calling a cab.
Right. It really is a staggering paradigm shift. And to understand that $335 billion valuation, you really have to look past the user interface, because we're so conditioned to just tapping a screen and receiving a service, that we've become entirely blind to the sheer volume of simultaneous multivariable calculus happening in the background.
Oh, absolutely.
The text actually outlines this as an incredibly rigid 8-step transaction lifecycle.
Right. And reading through those 8 steps in the guide, my first thought was just how fragile the whole sequence actually is.
Yeah.
Because, step 1 is registration, right? Getting the users and the service providers onto the platform.
Right.
Step 2 is service selection. And step 3 is the actual request. So the user dictates the time, the location, the specific need.
The basics.
Yeah, and up to that point, it just sounds like browsing a website. But then you hit step 4.
Exactly. Step 4, that is the matching phase.
Right.
And it is where the entire $335 billion industry either thrives or completely collapses.
Wow.
Because the algorithm, it has to instantly scan the geographic area, calculate traffic patterns, assess provider availability, and then match the specific user request to the optimal provider.
I kept trying to visualize how this works at scale. And honestly, it isn't a relay race, where a baton is just handed from one person to the next.
No, not at all.
It is much more like an automated air traffic control tower that has to predict the future.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. Because the tower doesn't just need to know where the planes are right now.
Yeah.
It has to know exactly where they will be in 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's factoring in the wind speed, the runway traffic, the fuel levels, all in fractions of a second.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. Because once that air traffic controller makes the match, the sequence has to flawlessly transition to step 5, which is confirmation.
Right, giving the user the estimated time of arrival.
Exactly. And then step 6 is the actual delivery of the service. Step 7 is the frictionless payment, which is usually automated entirely behind the scenes based on the data provided way back in step 1.
Right.
And finally, you have step 8, which is the rating and feedback loop.
It's step 4 and step 8, the matching and the rating.
Yeah.
That really stand out to me as the heavy lifters here.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, step 4, the matching, and step 8, the rating, are doing something profound. They are the critical infrastructure replacing traditional storefront trust.
Oh, that makes sense.
Think about how commerce worked for the last century. You trusted a taxi company because they had a centralized dispatcher, they had a fleet, and they had a recognizable yellow car.
Right.
You trusted a local plumber because they had a physical storefront on Main Street and maybe, a big ad in the Yellow Pages.
Yeah, the physical presence was the guarantee. Like, if they messed up, you knew exactly what door to go knock on.
Precisely. Now, that trust is entirely decentralized. The algorithm in step 4 guarantees the proximity and the logistical availability, while the aggregated ratings in step 8 guarantee the quality.
Okay.
The app itself has literally become the new Main Street.
Which naturally leads to the question of what we are actually buying on this new algorithmic Main Street. Because looking at the sheer volume of categories in the strategy guide, I have to ask, are we just getting inherently lazier as a society? Or are these platforms actually solving complex systemic problems?
I'd argue laziness is entirely the wrong framework here.
Okay.
What we are really looking at is the radical reallocation of time through triage. And what's fascinating here is how these platforms have evolved from pure convenience, like, getting a burger delivered, to addressing critical, urgent human needs where traditional infrastructure has just completely failed us.
Right.
Look at healthcare. This isn't about avoiding a waiting room because you don't feel like driving. It's about fundamental systemic access.
Yeah, the stats in the text regarding healthcare genuinely stopped me in my tracks. Take Teladoc as a primary example.
Hmm.
The guide states they have completed 50 million virtual visits. But the mental health metric is what really stands out to me. 76% of people with depression feel better after their third virtual visit through the platform.
Wow. And we have to ask why that is happening.
Right.
It's because the friction of traditional care, booking an appointment 3 months out, driving to a clinic, sitting in a waiting room while experiencing acute anxiety, all of that is entirely erased.
You just open an app.
Exactly. The algorithmic matching provides immediate access to a professional, which drastically lowers the barrier to entry for mental health care.
And it isn't just a screen-to-screen interaction anymore either. I mean, the guide brings up Dispatch Health, which is just a logistical marvel.
Oh, yeah, Dispatch Health.
They're essentially putting the emergency room on wheels. They use this on-demand infrastructure to route qualified doctors, nurses, medical technicians directly to patients' homes or workplaces.
Exactly. And think about the back-end complexity of that. Routing a mobile ER is not the same as routing a pizza.
No, definitely not.
The matching algorithm we discussed in Step 4 now has to account for medical specialties, emergency triage levels, and specific equipment inventory in the dispatched vehicle. They are physically reversing the traditional healthcare model by bringing the clinic to the patient.
But logically, I mean, if the technology is robust enough to route a certified nurse practitioner to your living room in 20 minutes, routing a bag of groceries suddenly looks like child's play?
It really does.
Which explains why, even with these massive leaps in medical access, the food and grocery delivery sector is still an absolute behemoth. The guide projects it will hit $200 billion by 2025.
It is the volume driver of the entire industry. And
Yeah.
that $200 billion scale is only possible because of platforms that have optimized inventory management to an unprecedented degree. Like Instacart is cited in the text as offering access to 1 billion products across 80,000 stores.
A billion products. That is essentially an infinite inventory tucked into your pocket.
It is. But the guide also draws a very distinct line between massive aggregators like Instacart and hyper-local delivery services like Swiggy and Postmates.
Okay, how so?
Well, the macro platforms are optimizing for vast selection across wide regions, whereas the hyper-local apps are optimizing for pure speed within incredibly dense, small geographic footprints like a single urban neighborhood.
Ah, I see.
The routing algorithms operate on entirely different mathematical priorities.
Which is the exact same dynamic we see playing out in the transportation category. Uber is the classic baseline the text uses. I think it says they have 131 million active users and 6 million drivers globally.
Yeah, that's right.
But when you look at the international landscape, the strategies diverge based on the local ecosystem.
Yeah, Uber is the dominant force in the U.S., but the text points out that Didi Chuxing completely controls the Chinese market by offering a much wider array of localized services like designated driving.
Wow.
And then you look at Southeast Asia with Grab. Grab is an absolute masterclass in ecosystem lock-in.
Right, because Grab didn't just stop at rides. The text notes, they transitioned into what is essentially a super app. Like, if I'm using Grab to get a ride to work, I am also using that exact same app for my personal financial services, my document delivery, and my parcel shipping.
Yes.
They don't just want a piece of your commute. They want to route every single transaction in your daily life through their specific algorithm.
It is the ultimate retention strategy because once a user is operating entirely within your ecosystem, the friction required for them to leave and download a competitor's app is incredibly high.
Right.
We see a similar conditioning in the entertainment and travel spaces, actually. The guide specifically classifies Netflix as an on-demand service, noting they reached 277.65 million paid subscribers by the second quarter of 2024.
I thought that was a really interesting inclusion. We don't usually think of streaming as part of the on-demand service economy in the same way we think of, say, Uber.
It's included because Netflix completely rewired consumer psychology. They conditioned an entire generation to expect instant, frictionless access to digital content, which perfectly primed the market to demand that exact same instant access for physical services and real-world experiences.
Which perfectly explains the explosion in travel.
Exactly.
The text shows the travel market, dominated by platforms like Airbnb and Booking.com, hit $854.8 billion in 2023. And the projection is that it will surpass $1,016 billion by 2027. We're talking about the total digitization of global hospitality.
Yeah, but if travel is the broadest application of this technology, the duty and home service categories are easily the most intimate.
Oh, for sure.
This is where the decentralized trust we talked about earlier is truly tested.
Because you are literally opening your front door to the algorithm.
Exactly. You are inviting a stranger vetted entirely by software into your personal sanctuary.
Yeah, the guide details Glam Squad, where you can book professional hair, makeup, and nail artists to come directly to your house. And what's interesting there is how they handle the friction of payment. The text specifically notes that payments start at $50, but that usually includes a 20% tip, all handled automatically in the app.
Seamless.
Right, there is no awkward cash exchange in your bathroom. And then there's Style Seat, which uses a completely different financial model. It's a subscription base of $35 a month after a free trial, which lets users book appointments 204/7.
And you see the exact same on-demand infrastructure applied to home maintenance with platforms like TaskRabbit and Thumbtack.
Oh yeah, those are huge.
Need a leaky pipe fixed, a house deep cleaned, or an IKEA dresser assembled? You are essentially renting specialized expertise by the hour, dispatched directly to your living room.
Okay, so if we take a step back, we're looking at an ecosystem that covers everything from emergency medical care to assembling a bookshelf, pushing valuations into the trillions globally. And you mentioned at the very beginning that a business can see a 200% revenue boost by entering this space. So the obvious question is, why isn't every single business doing this? How much does it actually cost to build one of these platforms?
Well, the barrier to entry is entirely technological, and the financial investment required is massive. The guide estimates development costs can range from $10,000 on the absolute low end all the way up to over $500,000, depending on the complexity.
Like $500,000
Yes.
for an app. I mean, I can jump on Squarespace right now and build a functional e-commerce website in about an hour for $20 a month. Why is an on-demand app costing a business $500,000 in development?
Here's where it gets really interesting because the term app is incredibly misleading here.
Okay.
You aren't building a single application. If you want to launch an on-demand service, you have to build 3 entirely distinct, highly complex pieces of software that operate in perfect synchronization.
Okay, I was trying to come up with a way to visualize this back-end complexity, and it really functions exactly like a high-end restaurant.
Oh,
Well, think about it. The first piece of software you have to build is the user app. That is the dining room. It has to be beautiful, intuitive, and seamlessly display the menu.
right.
The second piece of software is the provider app. That is the kitchen line.
Ah.
It isn't pretty. It is pure utilitarian efficiency, designed to receive the orders from the dining room, map the logistics, and track the earnings. And the third piece of software is the admin panel. That is the general manager sitting in the back office. They oversee the entire ecosystem, manage the transactions, balance the marketplace, and resolve disputes.
That is a brilliant analogy. The dining room, the kitchen line, and the general manager.
Yeah.
And across all 3 of those distinct software environments, the text outlines several non-negotiable features. You absolutely must have robust push notifications to keep the entire restaurant synced. You need seamless payment integration. You need secure in-app chatting so the user and the provider can communicate without exposing personal phone numbers.
But out of all those features, the guide explicitly names one as the single most valuable asset an on-demand app can have. And it's live order tracking, the little digital car moving along the map on your screen.
And that isn't just a fun visual trick. It is a vital psychological tool. Live tracking bridges the gap of anxiety between a user parting with their money and physically receiving the service.
Wow.
It provides the illusion of control.
So, assuming a business secures the $500,000, builds the dining room, the kitchen, and the general manager software, and integrates the live tracking, how do they guarantee they actually make that 200% revenue return?
This raises an important question about initial pricing strategy, and the text offers a stark, explicit warning here.
Oh, really?
It states unequivocally that high pricing is the riskiest method for a new platform. The guide literally tells developers and business owners to stop being greedy.
Stop being greedy. You don't usually see a corporate strategy guide use language that blunt.
It uses that language because the mechanism of a two-sided marketplace is incredibly fragile. We call it marketplace liquidity.
Right.
If a new platform launches and tries to extract a massive profit margin immediately, They have to charge the users high fees.
Right.
If the fees are high, users won't adopt the app. If the users don't adopt the app, the service providers have no one to serve, so they abandon the platform.
It just falls apart.
Exactly. By being greedy up front, you destroy the liquidity of both sides, and your $500,000 investment collapses in weeks. The priority has to be volume and ecosystem lock-in, not immediate high margins.
Which forces us to look at the real-world fallout of this entire blueprint. I mean, we know the mechanics, we know the immense scale, and we know how precarious the business strategy is. But when the rubber meets the road, what is the actual ecosystem impact?
Yeah.
Who is genuinely winning in this $335 billion economy?
Well, the source material is remarkably impartial on this front, laying out very distinct benefits and disadvantages for everyone involved.
Okay.
For the service providers, the drivers, the plumbers, the freelance designers, the benefits are highly tangible. The platform offers unprecedented visibility. It provides incredibly efficient resource management.
Right.
And ultimately, it increases their revenue potential by instantly connecting them to a customer base they could never reach through traditional localized marketing.
And for the customers on the other side of the transaction, the wins are obvious. It is the absolute pinnacle of convenience. You save immense amounts of time, you benefit from transparent pricing upfront, so there is no haggling, no opaque quotes, and you hold the power of the rating system.
However, the text explicitly lists the drawbacks inherently baked into this infrastructure.
Yeah.
First, there are massive privacy concerns. To make the algorithms work, these apps must harvest incredible amounts of personal, financial, and real-time location data.
Just constantly tracking you.
Exactly. Second, there are consistent speed issues, because the promise of instant gratification frequently crashes into real-world logistical bottlenecks like traffic or supply shortages.
The text also points out the flaw in the decentralized trust we talked about earlier. Inconsistent ratings and reviews are a major problem.
Oh yeah, huge.
A single bad day or an unreasonable user can unfairly tank a provider's algorithmic ranking, fundamentally threatening their livelihood.
And finally, the text lists the most profound drawback of all. These applications disrupt traditional industries.
Which feels like a massive understatement. I mean, they aren't just disrupting them. In many cases, they are entirely dismantling the localized businesses that functioned as the backbone of regional economies for decades.
It is the ultimate double-edged sword. Unparalleled efficiency comes at the cost of legacy infrastructure.
So what does this all mean? If we step back and look at the whole board, the air traffic control matching, the evolution from food delivery to mobile emergency rooms, the $500,000 software requirements, and the delicate balance of marketplace liquidity, it is incredibly clear that on-demand services have ceased to be a luxury.
Definitely.
They aren't just a quirky convenience anymore. They are the fundamental, unavoidable infrastructure of the 2025 digital economy.
They have completely recalibrated human expectation. The friction between identifying a need and having that need met has effectively been reduced to zero.
And that reduction of friction brings up a concept I have not been able to stop thinking about since I've read the guide. The text specifically highlights the goal of eliminating physical visits and disrupting traditional industries. And yes, we have perfected the algorithms, we have built the flawless digital restaurants. But if absolutely every human need, from diagnosing an illness to learning a new language to getting a leaky pipe fixed beneath your sink, if all of that becomes a perfectly frictionless, algorithmic transaction routed through an app, what happens to the serendipity of a local community? As we perfectly optimize our convenience, are we accidentally engineering a world where we never actually have to speak to our neighbors again?